Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing with lots of patterns and colours using the new colours from the Dina Wakley February release. So I had a little bit of an idea about this page where I wanted to do a lot of pattern work, and this sort of came about from, I did a swatching page, which I've got a video of as well, where it's just pure madness. I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing. I was just playing around with it. This page is kind of the same, but a little bit more controlled, if that makes sense. So I'm starting off with some base colors, and I sort of had this rivery type patterny idea happening in my brain. So I start off with the sage on the outside, which is that pale green color, and then I've got some marine in the middle. Not marine, sorry, mineral, which is a sort of a very neutral with a blue tinge to it. And then basically what I started doing was just painting patterns over the top. Now I wasn't doing anything complicated at all. It was just lots and lots of circular oval shapes, almost kind of Aboriginally designs, not, yeah, kind of, but lots of patterny, sort of organic shapes would be a better way to describe it. So going in with some new colour. So this is a new orchid colour, which is sort of that lovely purpley colour. And basically what I was doing was, once I'd finished painting out my shapes, then I was going in and just using my paintbrush. You can see me turning my wrist to create different shaped circles on the page. And then I just continued to overlap the circles. So this is a new rouge colour, which is sort of a reddy pink colour. And again, going in different shapes, different sizes of circles on the page. So the middle part sort of had those more ovally shapes, and those edge parts are going to sort of be lots of circle shapes. And basically it's just going in and creating as many circles as I could until I ran out of paint. Once I sort of finished with the outsides, then I went into some of these inside shapes to create contrasting colour as well. Apart from sort of having this idea in my head, that was about as much planning as I had. So I didn't know necessarily how busy it was going to get or how many times I was going to overlap colours. It was just sort of like put out a colour and use it until it's gone. Now the little journal that you saw me pull out, that's my craft journal, and obviously I had paint left on my palette, so I wanted to not waste it. So I sort of call those pages my use it up page. I just go to a random page in my journal and paint in any excess paint that I've got until I've used it all up, and that will be a background for another day. Whether I use it as is or a stencil over it or do something else to it, it's just a page I can use in a different way. So again, once I've finished sort of doing the ones on the outside, I'm going back in and painting over the top of these purpley shapes. And what you will find, obviously, for those people who know your colour theory and so on, if you've got a colour underneath, it's obviously going to change the colour of your paint. So you can see that orange is looking different in the craft journal as opposed to over the green as opposed to over the purple, which is perfectly normal. But if I wanted the true colour, I would have to paint out a piece of white underneath and then put the orange or whatever colour I was using over the top. So now I'm sort of running out of space. I am starting to fill in those smaller areas, but now with the bigger circles I've got on my page, adding some extra circles on top of those, so starting to overlap some of my colours. And again, this is, you know, really relaxing to do. It's a great mindfulness type activity. You know, there's nothing too hard to think about with circles or ovally shapes. It's fairly organic. You're just painting until you've used up all your paint, so you don't even have to think about, oh, you know, have I got too much on here? Just put out a little bit, use it until it's all gone. And it's lots of fun. Again, you can see me using that use it up journal, and anything I've got left on my paintbrush or on my palette, I'm just painting in there. I am drying off my layers as I go. just to make sure that everything sort of stays nice and bright and clean. So with those smaller areas, I'm now going in with my paint pen and filling those in. And this is where paint pens are really, I find them really handy, because, you know, you've got that tiny little tip that you can, you know, squish down to make a larger dot, or you can use quite lightly on your page to make a smaller dot. With the yellow, I'm going in with my paint pen as well, again to sort of add a little bit of contrast to the page. So now I am adding in some pale pink onto the top as well, and onto the little ovally shapes too. So again, just building up layer after layer, and depending on how many layers you want to get, how many colours you want to use, you can take as long or short a time doing this. And this would be a really good, you know, if you didn't have lots of paints, you know, but you had paint pens, it could be a really cool activity to do. You could also do it with gouache. If you've got that at home, try using that. If you had lots of different media, so you might use you know, distressed crayons over the top of this as well. So just play around with what you've got. For those of you who've watched my Niamh style swatching video, this is another way I kind of swatch. So it's kind of the same technique, but this one's a little bit more, I suppose, not refined, but not as crazy as the other one. Be the best way to put it. Now I'm going in with some turquoise and doing some mic making. So as you can see, my mic making is as simple as just making dots on the page. Depending on the space I have, I'm just using the dots to fill up the space. So you'll see there's some wider dots, some narrower dots. If you didn't have the paint pens again to do that, just use the end of your paintbrush. It's quite often what I would do, or a pencil. I will just dip that into the paint and pop it in. It's really quick and easy, but paint pens are just so amazing in the fact that you've got the whole range of colour that you can use. So again, just going in and adding some extra details, and this is where you can sort of go nuts and add as little or as much in as possible. What I do find is really handy though is when you get your white pen out and start to add these extra details. So a little bit of line work, whether it's outlining the shape or just adding in some random lines into those shapes to make those almost like flower seed petals. And you can see I'm doing the same with the blue here, just to add a little bit of difference and to pop those colours out from the background. So what I was thinking about as I was doing this, again, comparison to the last swatching video, is being a little bit more deliberate. So with the orange, looking at the blues and what blue works best with this, or with the green, well, let's try yellow. So actually planning some colour combinations, so to speak, and testing them out, seeing what works and what doesn't. Now I'm going in with my black pen and just edging around these shapes in the middle, just to push them out from the background a little bit, and sort of make them look a little bit more finished. So with this, unlike most of the pieces I do, I am trying not to be as sketchy as I usually am, so I am trying to be a little bit more deliberate with how it all goes. One thing I do find though that's really important when I'm working with paint pens in particular is to dry off as you go along. So you can see my hand is moving sort of here, there and everywhere on the page. If I hadn't dried that off with my heat gun, there probably would have been a lot of smudged bits. So I think I did manage to smudge some down in that bottom corner, but just be really aware, while the paint pens dry fairly quickly, it still takes them a little bit to dry. So it's really important that you make sure you sort of factor that into what you're doing. So now I'm going in with my black pen and adding some of that extra line work as well. So some lines in opposite directions to get some visual interest. Going in with white pens and some, I think there's some yellow pen in there too, to add some extra dot work in. So I liked my black outline of this piece, but I wanted to make the shadow, I suppose, a little bit more obvious. So I'm going in, this is an Inktense pencil, and it's in a deep cobalt blue. And it works kind of the same as the Stabilo Oil pencil. I could have done the same, but I wanted to have a sort of bluey tone to this. So I've just drawn along the edge of my piece. You can see it sort of flat out there. And then I'm going in with a wet paintbrush and just filling in the background. So what that does, the Inktense pencil, once it dries, is permanent. Unlike the Stabilo Oil pencil, which continues to be water reactive. So that is quite handy that it stays permanent once it's dry, and it comes in a whole range of colours. So you know, the blue worked well for me, but if you had a different colour in the background, I suppose you could use something else. Once I finished, I decided I wanted to put some sort of quote on my page just to tie it all together. One thing I did do before I stuck this down was I actually took a picture of my page just as is without this on it. And the reason I do that, you can see me taking the photo there now, is so I can use it as a reference, or you know, if I wanted to print that picture out to use in another page or use it as collage tissue, I've got it there that I can use, particularly because it's my own design. It's only using paint, so there's no copyright to it. It's just, you know, one of those really good things that you can have in your stash, you can use for anything. So I could print that out on sticker paper, for example, and use it as a front cover for a journal. So here is a close-up. You can see where I've splodged somewhat with the turquoise in the middle there. You can see the difference having that Inktense pencil around the page has made. This is with the quote on it, be willing to play, and I chose that deliberately because this was a big play session. It took me about an hour and a half, I think, to complete it. Even though it's quite a simple design, just having that time to go back and do all that dot work and line work was really relaxing and fun to do. So I hope you have a go at doing something like this. It may seem complicated, but it really isn't. It's just about taking that time to play with your materials and see what you can come up with. Thank you for watching. Until next time, bye for now.